If you're out there gigging without a tip jar, you're basically just volunteering. My name is Eric. I'm a local musician here in Northeast Ohio. I play acoustic solo shows. I play at wineries and restaurants, and I play about 120 shows a year as a side hustle. I play on top of my full-time job. I really enjoy it, and I make a few bucks. So I'm not a guru, and I'm not a life coach or anything like that, but I am experienced. Been playing about 120 shows a year for about the last 8 years. I used to play back in the day in high school, and then I stopped playing for many years, and then I came back out and started playing again in 2017, 2018. So I have a lot of tips, and one of them I want to talk about tonight was the tip jar. I actually did a little research on the tip jar. It's not something I thought about at first, but I did end up thinking about it as I progressed a little bit. I have a story. I had a buddy of mine that was just kind of newly gigging, just started gigging, and I went to one of his first shows to offer some support. And I got to the gig and he was playing, and I pulled out a five to go tip him, and I'm like, dude, where's your tip jar? Thought he maybe just forgot it, and he kind of looked at me like, he felt kind of weird about putting it out there because he wasn't super experienced yet. He had a great show, great storyteller, great personality. Everybody liked him. And I told him, dude, like you have to put out a tip jar. Like you got to put out a tip jar. And so I don't know if he put one out. I don't think he put one out that show, but the next show he put one out. He put out like a milk jug, tip jar, and put a little sign on there and said tips. We had a conversation about it, after that show, and we talked about it. And I convinced him to put out a tip jar. And he called me after, or texted me after that next show, and he had made like $20 in tips, and he was ecstatic. He couldn't believe it. And then as time progressed, every time he would get some tips, he would call me a couple times. He got a couple 50s, and every once in a while people get generous and they'll leave you. I've had a couple hundreds. Not It's very far and few, so don't think you're gonna get hundreds every time, but I've had a couple of them, and definitely some 50s and 20s and 10s and whatnot. So you definitely want to put your tip jar out there. I usually make 50 to $100. I kind of gauge around $100 as being kind of an average night. Maybe not average, but I shoot for like $100. I've had some nights where I make more in tips than I do for a fee. But usually, even on a slow night, I'll make $50. That's 10 people coming up and giving you five. Some people give you 10, whatever. But that, it's an extra 100, $200 a weekend. And if you play a couple shows a weekend, if you play 2 shows a week, it could be 800 to $1,000 a month that you're leaving on the table if you don't have a tip jar. So I was kind of shocked to see that there were people out there that didn't have a tip jar, but my buddy didn't have one. So first point is you should use a tip jar. And then my second tip would be what kind of tip jar. I like clear, something people can see through. I've been using this tip jar for a long time, and it was clear and see through. I put stickers on it, so I guess that kind of defeats that. But you could still see through it and see that there's dollars in it, and I think that works well. I think people see it, and it just gives them a subconscious, oh, there's the tip jar. I've seen guys that use like paint cans, and it says tips real big on it, and they'll hang it off their mic stand, off the little clip on the mic stand. They'll hang it right in front there. So that's good too. It's obvious what's in it, but you don't know kind of what's in it when, unless you walk up to it. So I don't know. I've seen guys, I got a buddy that uses one of those big plastic clear cheese. It holds cheese balls. He uses that, as a tip jar. It's huge. And, it's good. You obviously know what's in there. And I think he probably carries tips over, so it always looks like it's kind of, got some money in it. But, the clear ones just kind of let people see what you have. I bought this off of Amazon in like 2000, I don't know, 17, 18, 19, towards the beginning. It used to light up. It's got a button here. I actually changed the batteries before filming this, and it doesn't work anymore. I haven't used the lights in a long time, but it did light up. I would press this button and it would flash around. It gets people's attention. I'm not ashamed to put a tip jar out there. That's what I'm doing. And I got some stickers on here. Tips appreciated. I've got my Venmo sticker and Venmo code, which is super important nowadays. Guys have been asking me. I just had a guy, a little older than me, not super technical, and he called me. He's like, "Man, how'd you get that Venmo sticker on your thing?" Because I was talking to him. And I'm like, I make it depending on the place. The wineries and the older demographics still use cash, but some of the younger demographics definitely don't have any cash. They don't have cash. And before I put this on here, I had people that would come up to me and be like, "Oh, you have Venmo?" And I didn't have Venmo, and they'd be like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash." So I got onto that real quick. Now I put this Venmo on here, and I make probably not as much as I do cash, but I probably make an extra 30, $40 a show. Not bad. 20, 30, 40, sometimes not any, but enough to where it's worth it. I also have a poster board that I put behind me, and I have my Venmo on there too. So it's got my Venmo code and my handle or whatever. And then I put some stickers on here. I don't know why. I don't know, just so people know who I am, Eric Andrews. So, yeah. So that's that. I've seen some people just, the old days, just put their guitar case out with their guitar open, the guitar case open, and, they'll put a few dollars in there so people know they're for tips. I actually I don't know where I saw this, maybe on YouTube or something, that there's like a psychological impact to using your guitar case where it's down on the ground and people have to come up and like put $1 in it, and there's like a psychological barrier that they don't like to do that. It's almost like they're giving to the homeless or something. I don't know. There's some kind of, I don't know if that's true or not. I know plenty of guys that just use their guitar case. One less thing you got to carry in and out of a gig. But I've used a guitar case a couple times when I've been in a jam and forgot my tip jar, and I don't know that I did as well. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I like my tip jar, and I like to put it right up front and center. Some people, if you do a search or whatever on tip jars, like some people say or if you talk to some musicians, some people say to like put it off to the side, like have it visible but not right in front of you. I don't know why. I don't quite get that. I actually put a little tray on my mic stand, and I put it right there on that mic stand, so it's right in front of me. And I don't think it deters people from coming up. I think people like to come up, talk to you, request a song, whatever. I put it right up there, and I can kind of use it as a prop too. Sometimes people out in the crowd, I play a big wide range of songs, so once people kind of get hip to the fact that I'm not stuck in one little area, a lot of times they'll start shouting out, requests or whatever. And I'll always, I'll like pick up my tip jar and like look underneath it and be like, I think I know that one. I think I got the chords here somewhere. I think they're here somewhere, the chords. And people laugh, and they think it's funny. And then they usually come up and tip me. So that works out pretty good. I always say thank you. I always say thank you. Try to go out of my way. Even if I'm in the middle of a song, someone comes up and tips me, I'll stop the chorus or the verse or whatever and say thank you, and then pick it back up or repeat it or whatever. Unless it's just a super big, impactful part of the song that I can't say thank you, I will at least acknowledge them and give them a wink or something. So I always say thank you. And then, the other question is should you mention your tip jar? And what I normally do is I don't really say like, hey, it's not a tour. If I was in a touristy area, I've heard them say, hey, if you like what you see up here, please show some love or whatever. But they're working just for tips. Or if you're down in Nashville, they'll pass this thing around the crowd, or walk right up to you if you're sitting there till you put something in there, or, get out of there. At the wineries and stuff like that, what I'll usually do is maybe once a night, not even more than that, I'll just say like, if a couple people came up and tipped me, I'll say, hey, I just want to say thanks for the love tonight. Appreciate it. And I'll just kind of nod at my tip jar. I don't go, hey, thanks for the love. I'll just say, hey, appreciate everybody coming up and showing me some love and whatever. Yeah. So those are pretty much my points. I do have a cheat sheet. Not quite a professional YouTuber yet. I'm getting there. But, why it's important to put a tip jar out. You put a lot of time into this, more than just, you don't just show up there and plug in and play for 3 hours. I mean, you got time into this, you've got gas, you've got string, picks, little things, and these tips really help you kind of, supplement, so not all of your fee is going to those kinds of things. Pays for gear and grocery. I mean, if you make $50 in tips, you can take your wife out to, dinner or whatever. Well, nowadays, maybe lunch. And I also find people want a tip. If you don't have a tip jar, people walk up and they're like, where's this? I've even had my tip jar out and people walk up and they're like, they don't see it at first or whatever. And I'll kind of nod. But people want a tip. They want to show their appreciation. And, you just kind of need to give them permission to do that. So if you play out, put out a tip jar. It pays for itself in one night. Go buy a nice tip jar. I used this one once too. I had gone to a gig. I'd forgot my trusty tip jar. Or I had it in another car or something like that. I can't remember what it was. And so I stopped at a drugstore and I bought this. I have no idea what this is used for. It's got 2 handles. It's kind of nice. The only thing it was a little big. So if you only have a couple of tips, it doesn't look like you're doing too good. This one fills up pretty quick, and people are like, "Wow, this guy's must be okay." I don't know. That could just be me, but this worked too. So anything but nothing. So that's it. So next week, I haven't come up with a topic for next week yet. So if you have any suggestions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. And I do have a link down in the description for my free template to approach places, to send emails to get some gigs. And you can get that template for free. So go down there and check that out. And if you have any tip jar stories or other tips that I missed, please leave them in the comments. And I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.